Pinkie's POV is sponsored by Black Rifle Coffee Company. What's up? God, I hate that coffee. Several months ago, my sister did a review of DiRT Rally. She did enjoy it, praising its gameplay despite being a hard son of a bitch to go through, including the sweetest stages. Of course, this game takes a more simulation-y approach compared to the previous games, which is why it was given praise by hardcore racing fans, with the exception of those who rather die for Richard Burns' Rally. I don't know, it just doesn't have that oomph to me. But this isn't about RBR, and frankly, there will never be a video about it here. Always say never. But what I'm talking about for this month is the preceding trilogy that changed everything for Codemasters and a part of the racing genre. For better or worse, it's your call, but to me, the first 3 DiRT games are interesting in their own ways. So let us have a little retrospective of these games, with more respect of course. What the fuck do you mean by that? The Colin McRae Rally series are great games to play. The first one is rather generic in retrospect, even with the rally school, the inclusion of super specials, and all that, but gameplay wise, it's still enjoyable. 2.0 is a major upgrade, not only in menu design, but also in content, including arcade rallycross mode. I always love whenever the Sky Chase is doing a stage, I miss that shit. 3 was a bit of a letdown in its championship mode, where you're stuck with driving a Ford Focus for its entirety, and I feel the physics and handling are a bit odd, but still a good game. 04 is better as you're back to choosing your own classic car for the championship mode, but it still has that odd driving. Tarmac driving makes it look like I'm slipping and sliding. Same with 2005, but at least it has an actual career with events and tests to complete in order to get to the top brass. The last 3 games were released on a yearly basis, which I'm sure must have broke a lot of developer spirits. And even with 5's career mode, it started to feel stagnant compared to something like Rally Sport Challenge 2, which had plenty of race types to try other than rallying. So enough is enough and it's time for a change. Things will be very different for this next entry. For one, they actually have more time to develop. And it's also gonna be on these newfangled consoles, so that explains it. Codemasters' new game was announced just days before E3 of 2006, but didn't get a proper name until months later as Colin McRae DiRT, or DiRT Colin McRae Off-Road as it was gonna be known in America at one point. This new game promised not only the usual rallying, but also a variety of other off-road branches, such as buggy racing, hill climbing, and return of rallycross. The hype was real, and fans couldn't wait for its release. After many teasers, the game finally came out on June of 2007 on PC and the 360, with its US title thankfully shortened to just DiRT. PS3 owners had to wait until September though. The cores weren't used to the cell processor, just like most development studios. That date almost looks ominous, but I'm sure it means nothing. Like the games I'll be looking at for this month, I'll be playing the PC version. Unfortunately, the retail version is shipped with the dreaded Star Force DRM. I mean, you're already scared of this initialism, but Star Force is much worse. It installs itself as a driver, and it can have severe issues, software and hardware-wise. From disk drive degradation, because it has suspended CD fast enough to see if it's the real deal, to decimating OS security. It's no wonder most see it as malware. Thankfully, the latest patch removes it, so I can play without the risk of breaking my PC. It's not like I can put the disc on though, because it doesn't have a disk drive, the joys of modern PCs. The game opens not with replay footage, because fuck, the pack speaking again doesn't look as good as in the opening. But it does showcase at least 2 new stuff that didn't show up in previous Colin McRae games, hill climbing and buggy racing. At least one of them showed up in Took a Racer Over 3, but I digress. With the exception of the co-driver, obviously, all the Colin McRae games are almost completely signed in the voice department. The first 2 games had the talent of Colin himself teaching you how to drive, and Liga Gris giving you the description of a rally. Unless you're American, in which case it's Ned Jerry giving it, no relation. But after that, it's all reserved for the co-driver. In DiRT, however, it's more talkative, and every game since has so much speech into it. And who's better to show you the ropes than Travis Pastrana himself?
Welcome to Colin McRae DiRT.
Nicky Gris, that's who. Who is this fuck? No shade to the pastrami meat, it's just that it's thought to play a Colin McRae game, and the first thing you hear in the title screen is some American rally driver saying the name of it. Paul Orndorff advertising the Elkamania workout set energy over here. Why am I the only one questioning it? Anyways, creating a profile. As a warning, you'll notice that I went by 3 or 4 names interchangeably in the footage. Mainly Pinkie Kitsune, the Pink Vixen, and the Devlin Rose. Now, the second name, which you've noticed in a few videos before this, was a tentative one before I realized it sounded too generic. And the last name was supposed to be my new nickname when I was gonna become this pink demon with wings. But plans changed, as one Dave Meltzer would say, and I decided instead to make myself as a shifting fox, because I thought they're more interesting than yet another generic demon design. This trend will continue throughout this retrospective, so don't mind if I go by Devlin Rose or Pink Vixen, or sometimes Pink Fox. Let's immediately go to the career mode, where Travis helpfully gives me a neat tutorial on it. It's pretty simple to understand. You have to win enough points in one tier to get to the next. Rinse and repeat until you reach the last tier and win the mode. And it doesn't matter which difficulty option you pick, aside from monetary rewards, the points you earn stay the same, 10 points per event win. Alright, there's monetary rewards now, and it's used to buy cars. Don't worry, it isn't a grinding mess. Hell, even discourages the grind. Unless you go harder, you'll get less money after winning an event again. Each event has a series of races, up to 4, and of course, you're limited to cars they allow you to use. It's basically an off-road version of Toka Race Driver, or Rally Sport Challenge but more Scottish. I love how the very first event you see is a trophy truck race, telling you exactly that yes, DiRT has more than rallying this time, just straight telling you without saying a word. So let's start with a rally event. Old habits just never die. Off the presentation. Can you tell this was released in 2007? At least the hot-cutting pretzel looks accurate. Looks like the code is falling to the brown and bloom fat like a lot of big name devs did, but if I'm being honest, it shouldn't have. How's about I compare it with other games from that same year? Sega Rally Revo was a majestic display of color and scenery, didn't need no filter. Same goes for GT5 Prologue, though it shines more in tracks set during the morning like High Speed Ring. Mortal Storm was mainly set in the desert, but it didn't need a brown filter because it was already brownish. Why would he add that and fucking bloom here? It really isn't a pretty sight. It isn't always brown, but the bloom can still ruin it. The only place that isn't completely bullshit by both is the Circuit de Doug in France. Ducks? Setting the brown aside, the graphics are pretty great, with detailed car models, nice looking scenery, and a main presentation that's actually more unique than previous CMR games. Look, I can see what's coming next after I select something, so cool. But because of that visual fidelity, the game is stuck at 30 FPS in the console versions. Thankfully, and obviously, the PC version can run at 60, though apparently it's also bad nowadays. I don't think you need more than that in a racing game. Of course there's cockpit view, actually 2 of them. I much prefer the one that's closer to the windshield because I can see more on the road instead of the interior. Problem is, it disables half the HUD, so you have to rely on the car's gauges. Too bad it's obscured by the steering wheel. For sound, it's pretty alright, typical of a Codemasters game, if a bit better. The cars have that distorted sound from the exhaust, and they sound great in my book. There's a co-driver, but it's not Nicky Grizz this time, and it's not Derek Ringer either. Instead, it's some guy named Christian, not Stevenson thankfully.
40, left 3, 100, left 5 long.
He's pretty standard, using the 1 to 6 system like in previous games, but I don't know, with his American accent, he just isn't the same. I got used to it, but still. By default, there's a mini map at the top, but if you like, you can switch back to pace notes like the old games. They're both fine. Travis is here to teach you and to celebrate you when you're alone in your race, and he's not that annoying, so I'll give him a pass.
Yes, you won! Enjoy that champagne. Ah, all that champagne.
Music is licensed this time, but the songs are made by way lesser known artists. Unless you're a big fan of American Chopper 2, I highly doubt you recognize any of these. Still, it's a pretty neat soundtrack with a mix of rock and techno. Not always a banger though. But still neat. My favorite has to be Paul Borg's Forza view due to how out of place it is compared to the rest. The inverse of Sonic Car, well, all but one of the songs actually fit. Unfortunately, in this game, there are short loops rather than full-length songs. It sucks, but at least I'm not as annoying as hearing Kevin MacLeod's Wholesome for the whole video. I like the menu music, but I would have loved it if it didn't have the money woman in it. Makes me feel uncomfortable. At least it's not as sleazy as the Chakacha's Jungle Fever. Ooh, if you know, you know. Let's get the gameplay before I die of secondhand embarrassment. Just like in my Hardy Grid video, it's gonna be difficult for me to talk about handling in general because this game has so many types of vehicles. Actually, even more so. From regular cars with different drivetrains to goddamn semi-trucks that can be easily tipped over. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Literally. I will say that the rally cars handle a lot better than their PS2 counterparts. Not too hardcore, it's still easy to drive them, but prone to spin-outs a few times. It feels so smooth to drive them on dirt. Tarmac is expected, they get grippier there, but I don't know. I just don't think they feel as good. Still, they handle so well. There were a few times I had unintentionally bad jump landings that damaged my cars on the Expand Rally Extreme, but they're not as serious. There's damage here, mechanical too, and there's even terminal damage in a harder difficulty, so one false move and you're done for. And I have to remember that I can knock out sides as easily here. At least I can restart, even in the middle of a championship or rally event, and it's so instant. Holy shit! I'd like to see Richard Bird's rally do that. No, it can't. So driving feels good, but what about the opponents? I usually float around amateur and pro-am, mostly the latter, but sometimes the 40 minutes multi-car races. I usually get a good time, unless it's the hill climbers or the 4-wheel drive classics. These categories are really unbalanced, especially the latter, because it's a mix of mid-90s Group A cars and Group P cars from as late as 1986, when they were at their craziest. Dual charge Delta next to a fucking Impreza. Yeah, no wonder I had trouble with it when driving the Group A's, the B ones are just better. But even if you take away those 80 machines, fuck the Celica. Did they remove the turbo restrictors or something? Even on amateur, I tend to get demolished by one, and I just have to get lucky. The hill climbers are just as bad. It's great that you can use any of these cars if it incentivizes you to. Just don't use the cheap ones, the Toyotas will demolish you cleanly if you do so. Ugh, fucking Toyota. And much like Hardy Grid, the opponents, even if they're even, can be inconsistent. In one multi-car race, I'll do fine, winning by a large margin, but in the next, they either get so close behind me, breathing down my neck, or just pass and win. This problem is exemplified perfectly in the Chula Vista courses, especially the B one. Fucking bumps, man. Now we talk about the several types of race events, starting with Rally, the all reliable. Drive a path while your pal gives you directions and incoming hazards on the sides. Like I said, the co-driver uses the 1 to 6 system for corners, where 6 is the fastest, just like any other Colin McRae game since the second. Even though their route discourages that line of thinking, you can interpret them as the suggested gear to downshift. Every 2 stages, you get to repair your car in a limited allotted of time of 60 minutes. If you do well in a race, you just repair a few parts and clean the car, but it becomes a problem after having some trouble, meaning you have to stick with a few broken bits till the next service. But take a good gander at this, because you won't be seeing it in the next 2 games. It's also the only type where you get to repair your car between races, and everywhere else it just gets repaired automatically. Just like any sane rally game, it uses a time system to rank the drivers. The one with the shortest overall time wins a rally. Easy to understand, right? Now wait until Dirt 2 ditches that. It's always my favorite type of race, and the 6 rally locations are great too, half of them gravel and the rest are tarmac based. While I like Japan, Spain, Germany and the UK a lot, Italy and Australia can be tricky. Stages with narrow paths and those in the forest scare me, I tell you. But oddly enough, this is the first entry in the Colin McRae Rally series to not feature a single snow rally. In fact, there isn't any snow courses here. I'm serious, none! It's Expand Rally Extreme again. It's a strange omission. Ever since the first CMR, it always had a snow rally, but here, it's just gone. Why is that? Maybe it's to live up to its name? It's called dirt, not snow. Then there's crossover, a usual staple of the CMR games. You race head-to-head in a circuit in 2 different laps. Oddly enough, the crossover races don't allow co-drivers, so you're all by yourself. It's odd because rally games before and after it allowed them to do their jobs. Even Dirt 3 did so. Even weirder is that it only happens in career events. In championship mode, the co-driver shows up giving you directions. Also, here's the raid events allowing that. They're basically proper race events pitting buggies, SUVs, or semi-trucks on a long circuits. It's nothing out of the ordinary, other than the trucks thing. Can you believe this is the only game in the series to feature that? Not even Dirt 5 had the balls to do it. Speaking of semi-trucks, hill climbing. It has them too! As well as regular cars and no ledges like the Tacoma and the Escudo, looking different from what I usually see in the Gran Turismo games. It's just like rally racing, but of course with a co-driver. There's a full Pikes Peak, but also Windy Point. A dirt game with more than 2 hill climb locations? That's so absurd. There's also Rallycross and CORR style races, which are regular races in loop circuits circuit slices, mind you. Nothing out of the ordinary here, except this is before the Joe collapse ruined everything about Rallycross. And while I like the buggy races, I don't like one certain track, and it's this variant of Chula Vista. Man, do I hate tackling this spot with the bumps. I shouldn't go really hard on them, but when I'm racing against other people, I have no choice. Despite being a shorter month, the car list is the most diverse of the trilogy, I think. Like I said, semi-trucks. You also have the pickups, the buggies of 2 types, many classes of rally cars, and like 4 rallycross cars. There's a Lotus in my Colin McRae game. Not only that, but also one of only 2 appearances of Suzuki in the series, plus a 307 rally car outside of an Evolution WRC game, and a Phenomenon Stratos. I wonder what happened to it. But in order to unlock them, it isn't just progressing through the game, you also have to buy them. Sometimes when you progress to a new tier, a new car gets awarded to you, but much like Hardy Grid, you still have to buy better cars as you progress. The cars now have multiple liveries each, so it's great. I'm glad I can have different paint jobs instead of sticking to one forever. Though, like Hardy Grid, you can make your own livery in-game. This isn't DiRT for you now. Instead, you have to select a pre-made one, which you also have to buy. But if you don't like any of these, don't worry, there's custom-made ones on the internet. And much like in DiRT Rally, the way to do it is to replace a few PSSG files of a library folder. Always back it up! DiRT may be running on Neon, the precursor to the Ego engine, but the methods are still the same. This also applies to the next game, so for anyone who thinks I forgot about it when I reach it, don't worry, it's already covered. Now that that's over with, I'm actually getting into the final event, the Champion of Champions, where legends get to race in several rounds of differing disciplines. Legends like Colin McRae, Rally Expert, Kenneth Hansen, Rallycross Expert, Mike Ryan, Pikes Peak Expert, Johnny Greaves, Truck Racing Expert, and Travis is here too. Unlike all the events before, the cars are actually loaned to you, so no need to spend so much in total. It's a pretty unique event, all things considered, testing your skills in all the race types. And if you win, you get the McRae R4 as a reward. Wait, I thought I had to complete the whole career mode to unlock it. Tension, but I was under the impression that 100%ing it is synonymous with completing it, but I guess not? Do I have to specify that I 100% of the game? Oh, I 100% of this, I 100% that. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Anyways, great car. I sure hope it sees some competition. For other modes, there's Championship, which doesn't unlock anything, don't worry about it. It's only rally championships, but you gotta race in 5 or 7 stages each rally, ending with a crossover stage. That's basically it. There's Race World, the quick race mode, where you either do a single race event or redo something from the career pyramid, plus time trial. Then there's multiplayer, and like Hardy Grid, there's no split screen, only online or LAN. And apparently it's really bad according to fans. I only ever did a solo LAN session to test it out, but you can't choose what track and car you want to use. You just have to vote on the selection and hope more people pick the same. No freedom choice really, everyone will always be driving the same car. I can see why the Cody says I drove Raleigh completely, this sucks. So that was Colin McDirt. Pretty fun game with a lot of stuff to do. I really like the different disciplines and a career mode, but I don't like the look of it most of the time. Still, I'm glad that I reviewed something a lot simpler after Undercover, and it's gonna get better from here. Or worse if you're that kind of person. Next time, a certain blockhead invades the series. Hey, I'd like a simple medium latte, please. Pinkie? Sophie? Hey, Miss Wendy Kincaid. Or is it Lauren Trout? That is right. Good to see you too. Thank you. So, this is where you work now, a bartender for a coffee shop. Not just that, I actually own it. Meanwhile, Mandy is a coach for the college basketball team. It's so nice being my former boss, which is something I thought I'd never say in my life. It's been months since we've left the forces, so could you give us a rundown of what I miss about you? I'm a fox now. Vixen to be more accurate. Like, are you a Furion or something? No, I'm literally a fox that can shapeshift. This is even my default form. That explains why you're able again. But how? Vincent converted me. He basically said something from a book, and then boom, Canadian-made Vixen. Don't mind her, she thinks so because she was made in a Canadian territory. And what about you, Sophie? I felt burned out and wrestling got in my way, so I decided to make Pinkie the new host. She's Vince's new girlfriend. Well, was. I got abused a few days ago, so I just dumped him. I'm free from that mess. If you really want to talk about Vincent, it's best to do it private. Meet me in our apartment on Sunday.